Okay, so this is an overview of pretty much everything we've done with our Salesforce org inside of Homebuyer Development. So we're going to start off with looking at the milestones dashboard, and we'll get into this later, but basically we took out the two milestones for eHome. We have a process we'll go into for that. But let's start off with before they even schedule. So basically whenever a contact's created, we have this very long document that we have to do for Mishta, which is one of our funders. So we actually worked with them and got special permission. What we created was a second community, and once you're logged into one, you're logged into both. So they just click here, do their surveys and pre-course forms. And here's our Mishta profile. So this is a very long document that you have to fill out with us. And what would happen is during a workshop, we had to make sure it's all filled out because we miss anything. That's a huge pain. So now they're doing it ahead of time. We're able to check all that before they even walk in. So they can go through and they just press edit. We'll have directions for all this we're still working on. When they're done, they hit save. And then just come down here and okay, so this is a walkthrough of everything we've done customization wise when it comes to Homebuyer Ed. So there's a number of tools here. One of the first things you may notice on the milestone template is we did take out those two milestones. We preferred custom tasks because we're not anticipating a ton of people on the online side. Felt like closing the milestones was a bit arduous. So we'll go ahead and look at it from their end to start with. We actually got special permission from one of our funders to take one of their documents and move it totally digital. So starting from the documents section, we had to build, if you want to know the components here, a Salesforce community, just like using one of their standard templates. And basically, once you're logged into one, you're logged into both. We had to enable a few settings on the community end too. So we had to enable it for certain profiles, etc. And we have this surveys and pre-course forms section. And this is the Mishta profile. I didn't fill this in, but it will fill in automatically. And it says whether you should complete it before, after, or during the course. So we'll go ahead and click this. This is a really long form that we needed for one of our funders. And basically what was happening before shop is we would come in here, we have to fill all this out, and then someone had to be at the workshop to check it, but now they're doing it ahead of time, hopefully, so we're not having to track that as much. So once they finish, we got a signature capture component. This was free. They'll pop in their name and press save, and then it actually saves in the in our Salesforce org. As you can see, this does go back and forth between the two. So if I click courses and appointments, I'm back at the CFT. So now let's go backwards into the actual account and contact side. So this is random user I made, put to Homebuyer Ed. And so the first thing that they're going to do, and the way it worked before, you'd have to go to the service after they scheduled the course and mark it as scheduled. We used a formula field and the process builder to actually set it. So that way when this is marked as scheduled, it triggers the things over in the other side. So let's go ahead and update this to scheduled. Press save. And you may notice we don't have some of the information here. We're still waiting on some things with the service product due to Setster integrations. And as you can see, without actually going and hitting course scheduled, we were able to get the milestone closed, so we know that it happened already. And if we look at the service now, and you notice I didn't update the service at all. It went to contact and started milestone process. We have a workshop scheduled date of today. So that's a formula field I had to put together. Well, it's a formula within the process builder I had to put together. And we're back with our open activities. So if we go back to this contact over here, one of the complaints I was getting was with verifying metrics was we have to click each one of these for each metric. So one of our coaches actually came up with putting in like a mass verify button. So there would normally be financial metrics over here. So this was a custom field I created with the process builder to map it. And basically you just pop in that number. If there's a co-applicant, you might want to check this off. We'll show you with just a second co-applicant. And we'll hit save there. And as you can see, the regular metrics are verified. If we go all the way down to the co-applicant information, 1 is not, 2 is. So obviously it's a weird situation, but it's to show you they're separate fields. And then we also need to assign the coach at this stage. So right now this is with our leads manager. That's why it didn't auto close. So this is something that people were forgetting. So let's do the service first. So reassign the service. I'm going to change it from Emily, and I'll be the coach in this instance, even though I'm not a coach. Go back to the contact. We might make a mass update someday. Change this to save. And now it's closed because the metrics are verified. Oh, and one of the things I didn't quite examine was, you may be wondering, well, what do we do if it's e-home on the course scheduled? So if we go back to this booking and fee, and we'll show you both versions, right? There's one for an e-home sign-up date. So this does the first set of e-home actions, changes the service type, etc. And then this does the second set, which fires off the 2 custom tasks to schedule that appointment, and then actually references the completion date for the service completion date, or the workshop attended date. So that was one way we were able to save a few steps on training eHome. We're now at course completed. And one of the things that was a bit challenging to train, that we use the process builder to make a little bit more simplified, you'll notice there's this offer another appointment button for cases where someone doesn't show up. So if we make the status, let's say they called and canceled. Yeah, so in this case, if they canceled, the status will come up, and this is a pick list, a controlling pick list and a dependent pick list, and you can offer another appointment or not, and it'll fire off a service product with the same thing, and kind of repeat the process. But this person did show up, let's say. If we punch this as attended, I believe that's all we need to do on this milestone. This is what's great about it, is if you don't know what exactly needs to happen, the system's kind of telling you, hey, you marked it right, or no, you didn't. So that time it did. For the survey, so if you remember that community from before, this is the custom object we created, right? So as you can see, this grabs all the information and created the survey. So this is just a custom object with a different record type and a different page layout. And we'll go ahead and look at it from the second community, but they would get to it through the regular one. And yeah, this time it did, so I just created this manually, so I gotta work on that. This is when you should complete after the meeting or the appointment. And this does spit out a service date. One of the things we wanted was our survey done before we gave the certificate. And this lets us do that. So let's go ahead and just fill this out. And this was saving us, we had to do a lot of like manual calculations in order to evaluate the success of these surveys. Good. And they can go ahead and put whatever, and when we press save on that, if we go back to our friend Young over here, the survey is now marked as complete, and we're being told to make the certificate. So we actually went, and I'm going to really quick just show you. Let's go back into this. What the tabs are at the moment is it just surveys and course, surveys and surveys and pre-course forms and then courses and appointments. You'll see in a second how this is about to change when we create the certificate. So one of the things our coaches were saying was the process of building a certificate is really difficult. They felt like this would be, like, a digital one would be an easier format. So this is a flow. Refresh that because it's not showing me everything I need. This is a visual workflow. It's kind of a legacy Salesforce feature. It basically lets you create like a screen to grab information and it throws it to other places. So this is, kind of an interesting feature. We're doing some cross-object work here, actually. In order to get the certificate to show up in the right place, and because I'm using some Visualforce stuff, it had to read off the user object, which if you've ever been inside the user object, I can show you what it looks like. It's this monstrously long list of users. So we didn't want that happening. This is not fun to scroll through. So what this does is it basically takes that user object process and it kind of sends the information over there as well as other places at the same time. So we're going to grab the email from the contact. We're going to grab the service name so we can make sure we get this on the service. There's some information we need to send there for the workshop schedule date, and it's now going to do this cross-object calculation. And I can also view this from, I made a booking in fees view. Let's refresh it and make sure my certificate closed. Yep, certificate closed. We'll show you what it looks like for them, but this is a booking in fees of surveys complete. So when Young did this, it marked the survey completion date to the date he did it. So I can just check this every day and make sure I've done the certificate or not. So let's go back to Young Test and show you guys what this all looked like. So this shows up now as a certificate. So we've added this tab. This is kind of a cool smart feature. And it grabbed that date I put in. It grabbed the guy's name. There's instructions to print here on how to get it all out. So that is basically our certificate now. And it's going to save a ton of time, hopefully, with printing and everything. The final thing we need to do here, and I didn't come up with a cool way to automate this yet, but we're hoping to have a dispatch auto button at some point. But basically, again, it's reading off of the open services count. So when this goes from 1 to 2, it'll know that we dispatch them to a new service. So if we want to go through this whole process, we can. Add a service. Make sure we can do group education. We can do financial fitness. Press save. Oh, let's make some milestones. Oops, that's the wrong milestone template. Too fast. Press save there. Young Test now has 2. And this has been dispatched to a new service. And then we just got to mark this as completed. And this contact will be done. So, service status, service closed, service complete, and the date closed from the 30th, we'll say. Really quick service velocity. And there we go. That's the whole process. So most of this was done with the process builder. There was that flow which updated the user object, and then there was a Visualforce page, and then that community. So it was really only a handful of features that we had to get through, plus some custom fields, and there was a custom object in there. But basically, it should hopefully save us some time, obviously pending on the customers using it.